Hello everyone. In this video, I have discussed about Ajax. Now, Ajax stands for Asynchronous JavaScript and XML. To understand Ajax, first you should understand what does it mean by synchronous and asynchronous communication. In synchronous process, tasks are executed one after the other. That means each task must be complete before the next one starts. If a task takes time, it can cause delays in the overall process. Asynchronous communication is a process in which tasks can overlap and occur independently. That means one task can start, and while it is in process or progress, the program can move on to the next task without waiting for the first one to finish. And this asynchronous execution is the basis of Ajax technology. Now, what happens in a traditional communication, like whenever a communication between a client and the server takes place, that means you open some website on your browser, you click on button, you send a request to the server and wait for the response from the server. So what happens is in traditional web application, they reload the entire page when data needs to be updated. Ajax allows web pages to send requests to the server in the background without reloading the entire page. So what happens in traditional communication? When you open any website, you click on a button, you have to wait for the response from the server. Okay. And when the page receives the response from the server, the whole entire page is reloaded. Okay. In Ajax, this reloading thing does not happen. Okay, so Ajax allow web pages to send requests to a server in the background without reloading the entire page. So when a user interacts with a web page, JavaScript can make an asynchronous request to the server to fetch or send data without blocking the user interface. And we receive the data asynchronously in Ajax. So once a request is sent to the server, the web page can continue to function and the user doesn't have to wait for the server's response. When the server processes the request and sends back a response, JavaScript can handle data without requiring a page reload. This can include updating parts of the page dynamically. And this is what does it mean by asynchronous communication. For example, let's understand it with a diagram. Okay, so herein, let's say your browser is a client, and in the traditional web application, the client sends a request to the server. Okay, and what happened? The server respond to the request, and the whole page is reloaded. Okay, whole page is refreshed or reloaded, and by the time the client has, after the client send a request to the server, you have to wait for the response. You have to wait for the response from the server, and many times the web page becomes unresponsive as well. Okay, in Ajax, JavaScript has made that possible. You made a asynchronous call to the server through the Aegis engine or through the XML HTTP request. This XML HTTP request is a HTTP object, is a Ajax object that we use for this communication. Okay, so in the background, while you are still on the web page, in the background, through JavaScript, you send a request to the server, and while the server is responding to the request, the web page doesn't become unresponsive. You can still do other activities on the web page. So only that much portion of the web page that needs to be updated will be updated after receiving the response from the server. So herein, in this asynchronous communication, you don't have to, or the web page doesn't reload or refresh. Only that much portion of the web page is updated that needs an update. For example, let's say when you open Facebook and likes a video, okay, what happened? The likes increases, right? The count on the likes, if it was 5, it will increase to 6. Similarly, on YouTube, when you like or when you share, the number on share or number on like, it is updated. Okay, the whole page remains the same. The page is not reloaded or refreshed. Only that much portion that needs an update or um, that needs a response from the server, only that much page is refreshed, right? That is what is asynchronous communication, and this has been made possible because of the technology called as Ajax. So let's look at the definition of the Ajax one more time. Ajax, it stands for asynchronous JavaScript and XML. It is set of web technologies. It involves sending and receiving data from the client and server asynchronously. So this is the differentiating feature of Ajax, okay, that differentiated from the traditional web application wherein the communication between the server and client happens synchronously. So here, and because of the Ajax, the send and receive data from client and server happens asynchronously. It does not interfere with the current web page. So this request is being sent in the background from the web page to the server. Okay, without interfering the current web page, you can still work on the current web page. It differentiate than regular HTTP request. It is different than regular HTTP request. In Ajax, we make use of XML HTTP request object. Okay, so the request object that we use in Ajax is HTTP XML HTTP request object, sometimes also called as XHR object. Okay, XHR object. It carries data in XML, plain text, and JSON format. The recent format is JSON. It does not refresh the browser to receive data from the server. Okay, that's how the Ajax communication, that's how the communication in the Ajax works. And that is very basics about Ajax. Now let's understand it with the example. And one more thing before we proceed. So there are certain web technologies that we use, certain libraries and methods that can be used for this establishing this asynchronous communication. You can use jQuery, Fetch API, and Node HTTP. So Ajax, how Ajax works using these libraries, we can also make it what we are going to see in this video is using Ajax through pure JavaScript without using these libraries. Okay, this pure JavaScript is also called as vanilla JavaScript. Okay, now let's see how can we do this. Okay, let's see it with an example. So I'm going to create an HTML page first. So I'm gonna say Ajax demo.html. Okay, and let's see. So I'm gonna create one button in the body. So I'm gonna say button ID is equals to button, and I'm gonna say get text file. First, we'll understand how to make the Ajax calls, and then I'll also explain how to, I'll also explain the examples with Ajax. Okay. Okay. So I created one button and I'm gonna create a div to print something later. So, and I'm gonna give an ID as text to this. Okay, ID goes to text. Okay, let's see how to make this Ajax call. So I'm gonna make use of script. Okay, and first I'm gonna make, Okay, and why did not it? Okay, because I wrote it outside. So I'm gonna say script, and herein I'll create an event listener. Okay, so document dot get element by ID, and I'm gonna target the button, and I'm gonna add an event listener to it. Excuse me. The event listener that I'm adding is click, and I'm gonna say load text. Okay, is the name of the function. So what I basically did is I created a button, and when I click on that button, I want to add an event. I want to call this function load test. Okay, so I added an event listener for that. Now let's define this load test function. So I'm gonna say function load text, and I'm just gonna say first, just to test, I'm gonna say console.log button click. Let's see if this much portion of the code works fine or not. So I'm gonna run it. One with live server. Okay, and I'm gonna open the console. Okay, now see, when I click on this button, it is printing button clicked. Okay, so basically this much portion of the code is working fine. Right, let's go back to the code. Okay, and let's create an XML request, XHR request, that is XML HTTP request, Ajax call. So the way you do it is, well, I'm gonna first comment this. The way you do it is, you create an object, okay? Create a object, and I'm just gonna name it as XHR. You can name it as anything, wherein XHR stands for XML HTTP request. It's not mandatory to use only this variable. You can use any variable. Okay, now to create an object, you use a new keyword, right? And then I'm gonna say XML HTTP request. Okay, so I created an XHR, that is XML HTTP request. Let's see if it prints something. So I'm just gonna say console log, and let's say what does it print. So I'm gonna say console.log XHR. Okay. Does it print anything? See, it is printing XML HTTP request, right? And there are some more things that you see on abort, on error, on load. These are all the functions that are available with XML HTTP request object. Okay, so I created an XML object, XHR object. Okay, now I'm gonna comment this. Okay, now when you use the open method, you see there is one method called as open. There should be one method called as open here. Okay, now when you use that open method, it takes certain parameters. What are the parameters that it takes? It takes type, it takes URL, okay, or file that you want to open, and the mode, async or async, that is true or false. Okay, so the way you're gonna use it is you call this object dot method name, and my method name is open. Okay, and I'm gonna use this get method. So there are two HTTP methods, get and post. Okay, so what is the difference between the get and post? Get is when you send a get method. Get and post are basically two HTTP methods used by web browsers and servers to communicate. They define the way in which data is sent and received over the web. So the purpose of the get method is used to request data from a specified resource. Okay, Now, data which you request is appended to the URL. So for example, the data, let's say I am sending it to, let's say, some example.com, okay, some website.com. And in get method, what happened is the data get append to the request query. Okay, so the data will be appended to the request query like this. Okay, like this. In get, okay, again, get and post are two HTTP methods. Okay, HTTP means Hypertext Transfer Protocol. So it's a rule of communication between a browser and the server. Okay, rule of communication between the server and the client. And same thing goes with your post method. Okay, so what is the post method? The purpose of post method, the post method is used to submit data to be processed to a specified resource. Now, herein the data is sent to the body of the HTTP request. Okay, so in get, in the URL, you will see this. Okay, data will be appended to the URL. In post, the data is not appended to the URL. It is sent in the body, it is attached to the body of the page. Okay, so for sensitive communications, for secured communication, post is generally preferred compared to get. Okay, now let's come back to our Ajax method. Okay, so here in this open method, it takes type get or post. Then second parameter that it takes is a URL and a URL or a file. So let's say I'm going to use a file sample.txt. Okay, or let's say some file called as, let's say I'm going to use a file demo.txt. Okay, and the asynchronous communication, I will set it to true. Okay, that means I'm using an Ajax call. I am making an asynchronous communication and I'm making it to true. Okay, so I created an Ajax object. I call the open function through that object. Now I have to also make this demo.txt file. Okay, so when I click on this button, this file will be opened. So let's see. So I'm gonna say demo.txt and I'm just gonna say hello and welcome to the Ajax demonstration. Okay, so this is my text file. Let's see, let's go back here. Okay, and now, so when the web page loads, what I want to do is I want to open this file. Okay, so I'm gonna say xhr dot onload. Okay, that is another function of Ajax. So onload, and I'm gonna call this function. I'm gonna say if xhr dot status equals 200. Now what is this? Okay, now whenever we make a call, there are certain status like 200, 505, 404. Okay, 200 means everything is okay. Let's see if here on, okay, can say, okay. Okay, so if you'll search it over here, you should be able to see all the status. Okay, and let's see if we have, well, MDN is the best one for referring everything about web, all these technologies. And let's see. Okay, so you see here in status 200 is okay, 403 is forbidden, 404 means page not found, right? And for a complete list, you can refer to this website. Okay, so 200 means if everything is okay, okay. Um, that means if all the data is fine and is being received and loaded by the server. Okay, so that's what I wrote it over here. If xhr dot status equals 200, you're gonna say console, I'm gonna say console dot log, and I want to, whatever is in demo dot text, I want to display that. So I'm gonna say this dot response text. Okay, this dot response text. So if everything is fine, everything is okay, then display this response. Okay, let's see. So I'm gonna save it. Let's go back to the web page that we were working on, and we were working on this web page, right? So I'm gonna now click on this, and it did not printed anything. Okay, and let's see why. Okay, so herein I created a button xhr.open get sample text true and onload equals to, I call the function if the status equals 200. Okay, because I did not send the request, so I have to say xhr dot send, okay, to the server. Let's see now. Okay, so I'm gonna click on this and see it is printing hello and welcome to the Ajax demonstration. So I created an XHR object, send it to the server, and if everything is fine, server will display only this much information. Right? We can also display it on the web browser. Okay, so to display it in the web browser, I'm gonna make use of the div, this div that I had created. So I'm gonna say document.get element by ID, and my ID here is text. Okay, and I'm gonna say dot inner HTML. So inner HTML is usually used to get the content of the tag. And I'm gonna say this dot response text, right? Okay, let's see. And I will click on this one and see it is printing it over here as well. Hello and welcome to the Ajax demonstration. Okay, so that's how you can make in asynchronous calls. Okay, and that much, only that much portion of the web page will be updated that is needed. Okay, that's how it works. Now let's see earlier, this instead of um, this open, they used to use the ready state object of XHR. Okay, so let's see how does that works. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I am going to comment this one for now. Okay, just to explain how does the ready state work. Okay, well, it is an old way of doing it though. Okay, so herein we use xhr dot on ready state change. Okay, xhr dot edit on ready state change and equals to function. And I'm going to define this function. Okay, and I'm going to say console dot log ready state, and herein xhr dot ready state. Okay, so while the page is getting ready to reload. Okay, so now again, as I said, this is the older ways of doing thing. Okay, so herein again you have many ready state as well, like the way we have defined status equals to 200, same way the ready states are being defined as well. Okay, so one of the ready state is 4, which means if the page is done. Okay, and again you can search it over here. So if you will go here and you'll say XHR ready state, okay, and here run, you will see these. Okay, so 4 value, if it is 4, it means done, 3 means loading, 2 means headers received, 1 is opened, 0 is unsent. Okay, so these are different ready states that are available. Okay, now let's complete our code. So here in I'm gonna say if this dot ready state equals 4 and this dot status equals 200. I'm gonna say, let's say console.log. I'm gonna say this dot response text. Okay, and then this xhr dot send. Okay, so let's see, and let's try to print the ready state here as well. Okay, so that you get a clear idea about it. So I'm gonna do the console.log here as well. Okay, now let's see, let me run this code and let's check. So I'm gonna open this console and let's click on this one and see. First the ready state was 1, then it went through all the series, and when it is 4, then only your text is being displayed. Okay, your file is opened and displayed. Okay, because ready state 4, if you remember, I just showed you 4 means it is done, the operation is done, right? And after that it prints hello and welcome to the Ajax demonstration. Right, so that's how the ready state works. And again, you can use, right, currently we use open instead of ready states. Okay, that is the old way of displaying the thing. Okay, now there are some more XHR functions, that is on progress, on and on error. Let's see those. Okay, excuse me. Okay, now I'm gonna use it here. Okay, again, this is optional. Okay, so on progress means you would have seen when the page is loading, a wait symbol comes, right? A wait symbol appears on the browser. A wait symbol means either a clock or a round symbol, right? So that is called as on progress. Okay, while you are wait, so many web pages, they want to display something on the page while you're waiting for getting the response from the server. So for that, you use xhr dot on progress. So xhr dot on progress. Okay, and then I'm gonna call a function here. Okay, and let's say I'm gonna say console dot log, and again I'm gonna use, okay, let's use that ready state. Okay, so what happens when you have an on progress and ready state will happen, right? And I'm gonna get rid of this thing. Okay, and I'm gonna again open the on load function. Okay, so this is what we had used earlier, and I just gave you a demo of ready state. Now I'm providing a demonstration on progress and on error. So let's write a code for an error as well. Okay, so I'm gonna say xhr dot on error. So if you have an error, I'm gonna say equals to function, and I'm gonna say console dot log, and let's say request error. Okay, So, well, we do not necessarily require on ready state and on error. Okay, and this on progress is optional too. Okay, I'm just giving you demonstration like how does it works. So now I save this code and okay, Ajax demo, line number 43. 43 is this one. And okay, so this function ends here. XHR send. Load text, okay. So this, it needs one more curly brace, it seems. Okay, let's see. Okay. Okay, still need one more. This one is over here, this one is here, this one ends here. Which one is this one? Okay, so on ready state change, it should be like this. And we don't need this one. Okay. Okay, and I'm gonna comment this ready state change. Okay, let's see now. Okay, and when I click on here, see, everything is working fine, right? It after the ready state we have achieved, it is displaying welcome, hello, and welcome to the Ajax demonstration. Welcome to the Ajax demonstration. So it is opening, it is using this open function, right? XHR dot open. So everything is working fine. But as I said, this on progress and on error is optional. Okay. Main, what we use is on load. Okay. Now, let's see the actual application of the Ajax file. Okay, let's see opening a JSON file. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create two JSON files. So herein, I'm going to create one JSON file and I'm going to name it as, let's say, user.json. Okay. And okay, because it is already used. So I'll say u1.json. Okay. And I'll create one more that is u2.json. Okay, so let's write some data into user.ru1.json file. Okay, so I'm gonna say ID, let's say 1, name, I'm gonna say John, comma, and email. So we have already seen how to create a JSON file, right? Email is, let's say, john@gmail.com. So I created a JSON object, right? So I created a JSON file. Now in this, I'm going to create an array of these JSON objects. Okay, so I'm going to create 3. First one, I'm going to just copy this from here. So what I want to do is I'm going to open these JSON files asynchronously. Okay, and that is what I'm trying to show over here. So ID is this. Let's create another one. And ID 2, name, let's say Henry. Henry@gmail.com. And ID 3, let's say Joseph. And I'm gonna say Joseph at gmail.com. Right? Okay. Let me format. Okay. It's not allowing me. Okay, so I created an array of like 3 JSON objects, right? Okay, what is the issue? Okay, so this is first object, second object, comma, third object, right? So I created 2 JSON files, one file in which I have just one uh, object, and herein I have 3, right? Let's create uh, some code, just write some more code over here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is here, just to avoid any confusion, let me just delete what I have written in the script. Okay, now my script is completely empty. So now herein I'm going to create 2 buttons first of all. Okay, so this is button 1. Okay, so I'm going to say this is my first button, and I'm going to say get. So when I click on this button, this JSON file should open. When I click on another button, the second JSON file should open. Okay. Okay. But it is taking div. So I'm gonna say button ID equals to button 2, and herein I'm gonna say button, and herein I'm gonna say get user 2. Okay, so I created 2 buttons, and to display it in the web page, I'll create a div wherein I'll display the web page, right? So this one, and let's create an h1 tag, and herein I'm gonna say user. Okay, here I am using a div that with id user, and I'll create one more. So this is maybe user 1, and I'll create div with user 2. Okay, so let's see how does it shows up on the screen first. So it looks like this. Okay, get user and get user 2. So what I want to do is when I click on get user, the JSON file should be displayed below user 1. And when I click on get user 2, the second JSON file should be open below user 2. Okay, using XHR. Okay, using Ajax, and that is what is my motive here in this code. So let's see how to write a code for that. Okay, now here inside the script, first I'll say document dot get element by id, and my first id is button 1. So I'm gonna say button 1 dot add event listener, and the event that I want to use is click, and I want to call a function called as load user. Okay, I want to call this function. So let's define this function. Okay, so I'm gonna say function load user. Okay, and let's create an XHR object equals to new XML HT. Okay, new XML HTTP request. Okay, and then I'm gonna say XHR dot open, XHR dot open. You remember first argument is type, second is file that you want to open or a URL that you want to open. So here and the file that I want to open is u1.json, right? And then I'm gonna say true, right? Okay, so now I'll say XHR dot onload. Okay, we just saw how to use it. So onload is equals to call this function, and what I'm gonna say is if this dot status equals, remember the number? It's 200. Okay, so then I'm gonna say console.log. First, let's check. So I'm gonna say this dot response text, right? And you're gonna say send the data. So xhr, send the request to the server, xhr dot send. Okay. Okay, so let's see. Okay, and I'm gonna open the console. Now, let me click on get user and see the first JSON file is opened over here, right? So when I click on here, the JSON file that I'm trying to open will open. Because of that, asynchronous communication, and also because I'm using an XHR object on load function, right? Now, if I want to display it on the web page itself, okay, instead of displaying it on the console. So will it work like this? Will this dot response text will just work? No, it will not work because it is a JSON object. So you have to parse it. If you remember, we have learned while we were learning about JSON that you have to parse it. So herein, I'm gonna say let u1 equals to, or just say user equals to JSON dot parse. Okay, and I'm gonna say this dot response text, and now this parse you can put it to the inner HTML, right? So I'm gonna say I'm just going to use a variable to use it. So let output equals to a string, and to this string we will add this. Okay, so I'm gonna say output bus equals to, first create an unordered list. Okay, and to this unordered list I'm gonna add a list. Okay, list ID. And do you remember how to get the data from the JSON? Okay, you write the object dot ID. Okay, we have learned about this before. So, and okay, so yes, here ul li id, and herein you close that li. Okay, plus again the same thing. So li, and I'm gonna extract the name from the JSON. Okay, so plus this is my JSON object dot name, right? Plus line. Okay, notice how I'm writing it. Okay, I'm putting it inside the quotes. Okay, after that, email, and herein you're gonna say user dot email plus. Okay, and so this is plain HTML. Okay, and Shift F to just format it. Okay, and now let's print it. So I'm gonna say document dot write, or let's say document dot get element by ID. So the div, this div that I had created, okay, I want to print it over there. So I'm gonna say document dot get element by ID, and my ID is user. Okay, I'm gonna say dot inner HTML equals to this output. Okay, what I simply did is I added a function to the buttons click event. That function is nothing but sending a creating an XHR request, sending it over the server, and if everything is okay after after getting a response from the server, displaying it on the web page. Okay, so let's see. I saved it. Let's go back to our page. And now when I click on get user, so these things that we were loading it in the console is now being loaded here on the web page itself. Okay, that's the only thing that we did with this one. Okay, similarly, you can get it from the second JSON file. You can upload the data from the second JSON file. Now, second JSON file name is u2.json, and if you'll see, this is an array. So whenever you process with an array, what do? You have to use a for loop. So again, everything will remain same. Here, instead of opening u1.json, I would open u2.json, right? So let's do this. And I'm gonna say this, and my second JSON file is u2.json. Now XHR on load equals to function, status equals to 200, user is equals to JSON dot, okay. So let's create, okay. So here what I'm gonna do is this dot response text, okay. Let me just comment it for now because I just want to test it first. So user equals to herein. Okay, otherwise no need to comment. So herein this dot, okay. Let's do this. Okay, let's create another function instead of making changes over here. So document dot get element by ID, and when the user click on the second button, dot add event listener, click, and I'm gonna say load user 2. Okay, rest of the thing herein I'll just delete this. Okay, so this should be the same as it was. Okay, now let's copy this function. Okay, and define this function load user 2. Okay, I am wondering why it is in other color. Okay, we will see. So herein I'm going to use this function load user 2. Okay, and now let XHR is equals to new HTTP XML HTTP request, open get, and now I want to open u2.json, right? So herein I want to open u2.json, that is the second JSON file, XHR on load, call this function if state is equals to 0, if state is equals to 200, I am going to create another variable to store the JSON file. So that let users is equals to, earlier it was user, I made it to users, equals to JSON dot parse this dot response text. Let output equals to this. And now we have to use a for loop because it is an array, right? So I'm gonna use for and let I in users. So iterate through all the elements that you have in users, right? That is what this for loop says. So it starts here and it should end after this. Okay. Okay, now herein, because we're using a for loop, we have an three objects. So we have to say user at index I, and this is users, not user now, right? So users at index I, index I. Okay. And here in document dot, so what is the ID of second div? The ID of second div was user2. So I'll say user2 dot inner HTML equals to output. Okay, so the way it works is, see, herein we have three objects, three JSON objects in user2.json, right? So what a for loop says? For loop says iterate for each element, right? So each element means I is 1, right? So herein I is 1. So users at index I means first ID, then volume, name and the email. Okay, first objects, first ID, name and email. Second time the for loop iterate, it will print users at I2, that is second object's ID, name and email. And then third time when the for loop iterate, it's third object's ID, name and email. Okay, and that is why we have used this I over here. Okay, let me format it and show you. So when you format, the code looks more clean. Okay, the way you can format is Alter, Shift and F. Alter, Shift and F will format your code. Okay, let's see, let's save this. And herein, when I click on get users, okay, something has happened, get user 2. Some error has occurred and it is in line number 59. So line number 59 is this. What is the error? Okay, again, some brace is missing. So this is my for loop. Okay. This one is if status. Okay. This one, if the status equals to 200, okay. This one is fine. This one is this one. So we have this one, we have an end for this one. This one is over here. This one is over here. So we have all of these. So the problem I think is over here. Yes. So load users, I did not end it. This one. Okay, let's see. Okay, it's not doing anything. This one is doing. So when I click on get user 2, it is working. Right. Okay, and I wonder why is this not working? Okay, let's send it separate and check. Okay. Get user, yes, it is working. Get user 2, it is working too. Right. So we have seen how does the Ajax works, right? We have also seen how to make use of the JSON file to load using Ajax objects, right? So I hope whatever I have taught in this lecture, in this video, you have understood. What I would suggest is these things cannot be learned just by watching what I'm doing. These things can be learned only through practice. So when you watch me doing the code or writing the code, I highly suggest and recommend that you write the code and try to understand as well. Okay, the way I have created the JSON file, you can create more JSON file and can check with the load of, with the click of a button. Okay, and you can see if your code works or not. Okay, so that's how you learn. Coding can only be learned through practice. It's like mathematics, which you cannot learn just by watching. You have to actually do it to learn it. Okay, so that is what I recommend. And in this week's assignment, um, it's it's about matching the functions of Ajax. Um, and most of the tutorials are posted on the Canvas. Okay, so the the lesson or the tutorial, the content that is required to answer those questions is posted in the lesson that is posted in the Canvas. You can also refer to chapter number 14 of your book to learn about Ajax. Okay, practice it because the things are going to get more advanced from here. And we're going to learn about more advanced concepts of JavaScript in the coming classes. So with that, I'm going to conclude this lesson. I hope you have understood whatever is being taught. Please feel free to email me if you have any questions and doubts. Thank you and happy coding.